My 8th birthday cake was a small round one with plain white frosting. The words "Happy Birthday" were scribbled in light blue icing, and my name wasn't even on it. No balloons. No glowing candles. Mom set the cake down on the kitchen table, let out a sigh, and said, like she was checking off a chore, "You're a big girl now." Keeping things simple is a good thing. I looked toward the living room. My little sister Emma was playing with a brand new princess playset, the exact one I had dreamed about 2 years earlier. Mom had bought it for her yesterday because she's doing well in school and she deserves a reward. Emma was 6 years younger than me. From the day she was born, I could feel myself being pushed out of the center of our universe. Every bit of attention, patience, and surprise gift gravitated toward her. I became the good daughter, an invisible label that made my pain easy to overlook. When I turned 10, I asked for a simple sleepover with a few classmates. Mom shook her head. The electricity bill was way too high this month. 2 close friends are enough. 3 months later, for Emma's birthday, I stepped into the living room and froze. The place looked like a Disney dream, blush pink balloons. Everywhere, a 3-tiered cake shaped like a castle, and a professional face painter busy dotting glitter on kids' cheeks. I asked Mom how come Emma has a face painter. She smiled gently, like she was explaining to someone who just didn't get it. "She's still little. She deserves magical memories. And your dad just won a big case, so we had a little extra this time." There was always an explanation. A perfectly reasonable one that somehow always turned into something only my sister benefited from. As I got older, the differences grew more obvious. I needed braces. The orthodontist said the earlier the better. But Dad said to wait a year, so insurance would cover more. A year passed. They said the cost was still high, maybe wait again. When Emma needed braces, she got them right away. No debate. For my 16th birthday, I got a driving lesson package and a gas card. I was grateful. Truly. But when Emma turned 16, Mom and Dad handed her the keys to a used Honda Civic that still ran just fine. Mom said, like she was blessing her, "Your sister needs a car for yoga classes. She's really sensitive to the weather." I didn't ask questions. I swallowed them down like I always had. We lived in Tacoma, Washington. A 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb. Big enough for 4 people. Warm enough to hold memories. Dad Brian was a civil attorney. Mom Julie used to work as a school office assistant before retiring early to be there for Emma during these important years. I started working part-time at 14, babysitting for neighbors on weekends, then selling bread rolls at a small bakery near my school. During the summer before senior year, I juggled 2 jobs: mornings at the public library and evenings waiting tables at a pizza shop. I didn't complain. Honestly, I thought if I worked hard enough, good things would come. But I began to realize my effort was never seen as exceptional in their eyes. It was just expected, like I'd been born knowing how to handle everything. Emma, a C+, would earn her a celebratory dinner. Whenever she failed at something, the family would say she just needs more time. "She's sensitive. And if something was wrong with me, Lily, you're strong. I know you'll figure it out." Strong. Independent. The reliable older sister. Those compliments, I heard them so much, they became chains rather than rewards. I didn't hate my sister. I hated the way everyone positioned me behind her, like it was my designated place. Like I was born to carry the burden, so someone else could live lighter. But maybe things would be different. I used to believe that when I started college and left that house behind, trying to redefine my own worth. I had no idea that this so-called independence they'd labeled me with would eventually be what they used against me, in a way I'll never forget. At 22, graduation happened on a gusty afternoon at Colorado State University. My friends came with flowers, name signs, and bright futures. Me, I carried quiet dread in my gut. The recession had just hit. Jobs vanished. Finance crashed. Real estate froze. During the ceremony, the dean gave a fiery speech about resilience and open futures. I looked at my mom, grinning from the audience like Emma had just won honors, not me. The following week, I packed up my dorm and moved into a dingy apartment in Aurora. The walls smelled like mildew. The kitchenette barely fit a microwave. I landed a job as a receptionist at a tiny real estate office called Sage Realty next to a donut shop that always smelled like burnt sugar. My title was administrative assistant, but I did everything: brewed coffee, answered phones, filled out paperwork, even planted FORSALE signs in weed-filled lots. It paid by the hour. No benefits. No one remembered my birthday, but at least it was a job. At night, I studied for my real estate license. The materials were thick as bricks, the legal jargon as dry as drywall. I studied under a flickering desk lamp I found at a charity yard sale. Whenever my eyelids grew heavy, I whispered first apartment paid by me. That silent promise kept me going. It took nearly 2 years to get fully certified. My first deal was a tiny home in suburban Centennial, bought by a retired woman on Social Security. The commission barely covered my electric bill. But I had closed my first sale. I hustled. Mornings flyering doorsteps, afternoons, cold calling, old inquiry lists. Most hung up. Some asked if someone more experienced would call back. I practiced smiling even after the line went dead. 3 years later, I joined a bigger firm, Canyon Valley Realty. There, I worked with higher-end clients, doctors, engineers, families looking for dream homes with enough yard space for weekend barbecues. I learned to speak their language, wear just expensive enough blouses to build trust, but not too flashy to raise walls. Things shifted the day I met Olivia, a widowed woman in her 50s, searching for a place to start over after losing her husband in a motorcycle accident. She said, "I don't need a house. I need somewhere I won't feel lost starting over." I found her a cedar cabin-style home on the edge of a national park with redwood floors and a kitchen that looked out toward the mountains. When she signed, she squeezed my hand and said, "You didn't just sell me a house. You gave me space to breathe again." She introduced me to her tennis group. One bought land. Another asked me to sell their old place. By year's end, I had reached a sales milestone only 2% of agents ever hit. I moved into a penthouse apartment in downtown Denver. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked straight out to the mountains. In the morning, sunlight poured into the living room, making it glow like a photography studio. I bought the Subaru I'd always dreamed of. But the thing that made me feel truly alive was signing the purchase contract for a lakeside cabin near Lake Granby, the first vacation home under my name. I went there whenever the city felt too loud. A 3-bedroom home with pinewood walls and a stone fireplace I personally regrouted. I bought a second-hand lounge chair, polished it, and placed it in the backyard facing the lake. On September afternoons, I'd sit there wrapped in a wool blanket, listening to the waves lap against the shore, reading, or simply breathing. I didn't show it off, didn't post online. My family only knew I was doing okay. Emma was still the little princess. Mom still called to ask if I had invested in anything good, but never asked how I was really living. I never told them about the lake house. Never told them a local magazine had just asked to interview me for being one of the top-performing real estate agents in the state under 30. I kept it all to myself like a small fortress no one could touch. I used to think that if I kept giving, if I kept standing tall, they would finally see. But I was wrong. People who never saw your worth in the first place will never acknowledge it, even if you've built a whole tower from nothing but your bare hands. What I didn't know was that belief in recognition, it would cost me more than I could imagine. I was mid-pour on a cup of coffee when my phone rang. My dad's name lit up the screen, rare since his early retirement. I set the mug down, wiped my hands on my jeans, and picked up. "Lily, I need to talk to you." His voice was low, not his usual tone when bragging about Emma's latest therapeutic yoga scholarship or chatting about the backyard flowers. I froze at the news he'd been laid off after 25 years as chief accountant at Denver Freight Systems. No warning. No severance. Just an envelope, a forced handshake, and a hollow-eyed ride home. He tried to sound composed, but when he mentioned the mortgage bills, I could hear his throat catch. My mother, Julie, was undergoing treatment for advanced rheumatoid arthritis. Public insurance didn't cover the new prescriptions. She began skipping regular therapy sessions, lying that gentle home exercises worked just fine. I stayed silent for a long time before I said I'll help. That night, I wired the first payment, just under $2,300 for the mortgage and utilities. No one asked. No conditions. Just a tap and a message paid. Don't worry. I sent the payment regularly, on the 3rd of every month, the exact date the bank withdrew. After 3 months, I suggested wiring it directly to the mortgage account so they wouldn't have to stress about balances. One April afternoon, my father sat quietly for a long time, then said, "We'll remember this forever, sweetheart. This house, it'll be yours someday." I didn't ask if he really meant it. Didn't record it. Didn't ask for it in writing. I'd lived long enough to know that promises in families often disappear beneath the applause meant for someone else. I kept working in real estate, adjusted my personal budget, postponed renovations on the lake cabin to cover for my parents. I cut down on dining out, canceled my gym membership, and only kept a small allowance for my morning coffee, a tiny luxury I couldn't give up. Emma, during that time, was experimenting with being a content creator, posting meditation breathing tutorials. Mom proudly said she landed a sponsorship from some organic essential oil brand. During family dinners, my parents called her the positive light of the house. I sipped water, smiling faintly. A year passed. Dad found part-time accounting work at a rehabilitation center. No insurance, no real benefits. Mom continued her irregular treatments. I didn't keep score. I just did what was needed. I started covering home repairs, broken water heater, leaking roof, busted a /C in the middle of summer. I booked contractors, scheduled repairs, paid with my own card. Some months the total cost exceeded $3,000. I sighed, closed another land sale, and kept going. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked if I needed support. Every time I visited, Mom called me the thoughtful one, and Dad would pour me a small glass of wine, smiling warmly, repeating, "This house will be yours someday." I never brought up how Emma showed up with a new boyfriend, stayed a week, ate everything, and charged groceries on Mom's credit card. Every time she claimed she was broke, Mom would find money tucked behind the spice rack. And me, I kept sending money and stayed silent. 4 years went by. In total, I had spent over $150,000, including mortgage payments, property taxes, repair bills, medications, and even miscellaneous costs like fixing the gate, replacing window screens, and hiring snow removal services. I remember the last day of the 5th year. I was driving home from the office when a text from Mom popped up. "Your dad says the roof might need replacing. Can you check prices?" I pulled over. It was drizzling. I sat in the car for nearly 30 minutes. No music, no replies. Just staring through the windshield as the rainwater slid down like an endless thread, just like the unnamed burden I'd carried for years without once asking, "Is anyone standing beside me in this?" I still called weekly. Still asked if Mom was taking her meds. Still reminded Dad to check his blood pressure. I was the good daughter. I was praised for that. But I began to realize that label, the good daughter, was also the excuse they used to never look at me, not as a source of income, but as a person. 60 months. $165,000. They never once asked, "Do you still have enough left for yourself?" I used to believe that if I was generous enough, I'd be appreciated. But I was about to learn the greatest lesson of my life: kindness, without boundaries, is just another way to abandon yourself. And the biggest shock was still waiting for me just ahead. One afternoon in mid-March, I was showing a house near the edge of Rocky Mountain National Park when my phone started buzzing nonstop. It wasn't a client. It wasn't the office. It was Mom. 6 missed calls in just 40 minutes. I called her back as soon as I'd seen the client off. She picked up almost immediately, voice brimming with excitement. "Emma just got engaged, Lily in Aspen. On the snow, they even had a drone filming the whole thing." I leaned against the car door, staring up at the pale gray sky. Mom kept going, barely waiting for me to respond. "His name is Zachary. He works in event planning. They met at that essential oils party. He rented a private log cabin and proposed just as snowflakes started to fall. Isn't that romantic? I forced a smile and gave a polite congratulations. A little later, Mom sent a flood of photos via text. Emma in a fur coat, oversized sunglasses covering half her face, hand raised to show off the ring. Next to that, a picture of a wooden gift box, engraved with their names, its lid slightly open, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. I had no idea how much Zachary made from party planning, but I knew this much: Emma was still getting rent support from Mom every month. Her phone, her gym membership, her yoga classes in Malibu, all still sponsored. Meanwhile, I was still making the mortgage payments, nearly $3,000, not counting extra expenses. 3 weeks later, Mom called again, her voice giddy like a teenager, just crowned prom queen. They're planning a June wedding at the Hollow Pines. Do you know it? Gorgeous grounds, a little lotus pond, flowers blooming all year. Emma and I are picking out table linens now. I'd never heard a word about any wedding plan before that. No one had checked if I'd be free that day. I had just closed a deal worth nearly $700,000, yet I was still the afterthought in every family conversation. A week later, I got the formal invitation, not from Mom, but from a wedding planning company with a gold-embossed logo. My name was printed next to the bolded word bridesmaid. No one asked me first. No note included. The dress fitting was held at a high-end boutique in downtown Boulder. I walked in and saw Emma spinning in front of a mirror, her fitted wedding gown hugging her frame, open back white lace with crystals reflecting the ceiling lights. She looked at me through the mirror and beamed. "You're late." "Does this make me look short?" Before I could answer, Mom chimed in. "Not at all, sweetheart. That dress looks like it came out of a magazine. Lily, what do you think about the blush champagne bridesmaid gown? Do you think it might clash with your skin tone?" I kept my cool. It wasn't about the dress. It was the stack of paperwork I had seen on my parents' dining table the week before: wedding arch designs, photography contracts, for a yacht shoot, a wine list featuring imported Italian vintages. Where was that money coming from? They'd told me they couldn't afford to replace the roof, that Mom had to cut back on physical therapy because insurance wouldn't cover it. I asked quietly, "Where did you get the money for this wedding?" Mom looked up from the flower selection sheet and smiled. "Your dad and I had set aside a little savings from way back. A wedding is a big milestone, you can't skimp on it." I glanced at Emma. She was trying on slim heels, asking the staff if they had taller ones to lengthen her legs a little. No one noticed my eyes growing colder. The next day, Dad called. Not to check on me, but to ask if I could increase support this month. His reason: we need to pay the plumbing deposit before the rainy season. I didn't react. I just asked, "How much do you need?" $2,000 if possible. I transferred it that night. But I also began to take notes. Every time I sent money, I saved the receipt. Every home repair, medical bill, utility, all recorded in a spreadsheet with dates, descriptions, and reasons. I didn't say anything yet, but I had started preparing for something. Emma didn't seem to notice. She kept posting photos with Zachary at the beach in Florida, at the new Asian restaurant, at an organic perfume making class. I never saw a single post about work or responsibility. On cake tasting day, I arrived 10 minutes late due to traffic. When I walked into the room, Emma was already seated, 4 cake samples in front of her, each with a detailed description of every layer and flavor. Mom turned to me, clearly annoyed. "Your sister's really busy these days. It'd be better if you could make it on time." I sat down silently. Every bite of cake I tasted cost more than the lunch I skipped the day before to lock in a client meeting. I watched them chat excitedly, then glanced at the draft invoice blown sideways on the table by the breeze, just under $18,000, not including themed decorations for Midsummer Garden. And me, I was sitting there paying for the house they were celebrating in like I didn't even exist in the family equation. A slow, splintering feeling began to bloom in my chest. I didn't know when it would break wide open. I just knew when it did, no one would see it coming. Emma's wedding took place at a luxury resort outside Sedona. The kind of place people go to escape the world, not invite the entire town to a wedding. I arrived early in a custom-made champagne bridesmaid, dress tailored by the groom's family stylist. Mom said that color flattered your sister's complexion, even though I was the one wearing it. The sun lit up the sprawling lawn, where rows of white wooden chairs were lined up perfectly. White orchids hung in clusters from silk-draped beams. A live string quartet, the kind that played at Phoenix Finance Galas, performed nearby. I sat beside a distant relative nodding mechanically as she rambled about real estate prices heating back up. My left hand held a champagne flute. My right hand rested on my thigh to steady the sense of disconnection. Every burst of laughter from Mom's group seemed to push the atmosphere further away from me. When the ceremony ended, we were ushered to the reception, a lavish greenhouse set amid an orange grove crystal chandeliers, above walkways strewn with pure white petals. Emma strolled in glowing arm in arm with Zachary, like the world had bowed at their feet. I smiled as expected. I raised my glass when prompted. I fixed Emma's gown when it got caught on a chair leg. But I didn't hear a single person ask Lily. "Are you okay?" Then came the speeches. Dad stood up, mic in hand, voice shaky with performative emotion. He started with the day Emma was born, the first time he walked her to school, dreams that made Mom tear up beside him. I waited for him to mention me just once. He didn't. "Family love and a stable home are the most important things," he said. "And that's why your mother and I want to give Emma and Zachary a solid start." I straightened up my champagne glass, slipping from my hand and hitting the carpet, but no one heard it. "We're proud to gift the family home, the house where Emma grew up, as a wedding present to the couple." Applause broke out. My mother dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Zachary bowed in gratitude. Emma sobbed and hugged my father like he had just pulled her from an earthquake. I sat frozen. No one looked at me. No one mentioned the past 5 years I spent covering every mortgage payment, every property tax, every repair bill, thinking one day that house might be mine. I didn't stand. I didn't interrupt. I didn't make a scene. I stayed seated stiff, nodding at the server as they refilled my new glass. Inside, something tightened in every vein. When the dancing began, I slipped out through the side entrance. My heels sank into the damp earth behind the greenhouse. I ordered a car and climbed in before the tears could fall. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the house they now called a wedding gift. The one I had repainted, weeded, replumbed, and rehung the windows myself. The living room light was still on. A little sign hung near the door, "Welcome newlyweds." Had Mom and Dad come back yet? I wasn't sure. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, breathing like someone drowning just below the surface. I walked in without knocking. Mom was changing shoes. Dad was grabbing water from the fridge. "We need to talk," I said. They looked at each other, then at me as if surprised I showed up at the correct address. "What are you doing here?" Mom asked in that same hollow, gentle tone. "Why?" I asked plainly. "This house. Why did you give it to Emma without saying a word to me?" Dad sighed. "You've helped a lot, and we're grateful. But the house is still under our name. We have the right to decide. Whose name is on every mortgage payment for the past 5 years, who paid the taxes, who covered the roof repairs, the flooring, the heating system Mom cut in. But you did that voluntarily. No one forced you." I looked her dead in the eye. "You once said this house will be yours someday." Dad shook his head. "Plans change. Emma needs a stable start. You already have your own place, a career. You don't lack anything." I laughed. Not with humor, but like someone slapped in the middle of the street. "So stability means being financially drained and tossed aside?" "Hugh, you're right. I didn't lack anything. Except a family that understands fairness." No one said a word. I turned away, my hands still trembling. At the door, I paused once more. "Starting today, I will not pay another cent toward this house. No more medical bills, no utilities, nothing else you deem my responsibility." They didn't stop me. They didn't apologize. I left that house not empty-handed, but with a heart that felt heavier than stone. A door closed behind me, but the squeal of the hinge was softer than the crack forming inside me. I got home just before midnight, shoes still undressed, still creased from the wedding. I opened my laptop, sat at the dining table, and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd kept over all those long months. Line by line, it appeared: May mortgage $2,150, August property tax $3,200 water filtration system, $740 medication mom, $1,480. I scrolled to the final row. Total $168,920. Not including time, labor, or trust. I drafted an email not as a hurt daughter, but as an adult closing a failed investment. I attached the detailed sheet, clearly labeled with dates and transaction notes. The final line read simply, "I am ending all financial support as of today." This isn't an easy decision, but it is necessary. I hope you will respect this boundary. I reread it 3 times, made no edits, then hit send. The next morning my phone buzzed nonstop. I kept it on silent. By noon, Dad sent a short message. "What are you doing, Lily? Is this how you treat your parents that evening?" Another email came in, this time from Mom. It started with, "I don't understand you anymore," and ended with, "If you think money matters more than family, I don't know whether to be sad or angry." In between, she listed every dinner I ever ate at her table, every ride Dad gave me to school in winter, every morning she woke up early to pack sandwiches for my job. I read every word. Not one mention of Emma. Not one sentence about the house. No one explained why I had been excluded from the biggest decision of their lives. 2 days later, my Aunt Mom's younger sister called. Before I could say a word, she started, "What are you doing, Lily? The whole family's talking." "You sent that email like a boss firing an employee." I kept my tone calm. "Did you know they gifted the house I paid for to Emma?" She hesitated, then sighed. "She's your sister. She just got married, she needs a starting point. You already have one." I built mine myself. No one handed it to me. I'm not taking anything back, I'm just done being used. "But you're hurting your mother, Lily. She's really upset." I hung up after one short sentence. Some wounds don't come from ending something. They come from letting it go on for too long. 3 days later, I opened Facebook and saw a post shared by a cousin. A vague caption, "Some people only see money, forgetting who raised them." Dozens of comments followed, mostly from extended family. An uncle wrote, "You have to understand parents need support when they're old." No one tagged me, but they were all talking about me. People who never once asked how I was doing. People who had no idea I had been sending money steadily for 5 years, putting off countless personal investments, just to keep that house standing. I didn't argue. But I wrote an email and sent it to every relative who had joined the collective criticism group. This will be the only time I speak on this matter. For 60 consecutive months, I covered every operational and maintenance cost for my parents' house. I asked for nothing in return but fairness and acknowledgement. That house was handed to someone else without a single word to me. Ending financial support isn't an act of resentment. It's a boundary because I refuse to be in a relationship where my value is disregarded and my contributions erased. I hope everyone will respect my right to protect myself. I didn't wait for replies. I never returned to those family group chats. I blocked anyone who continued to send guilt-tripping messages. Every time my phone rang and it wasn't work-related, I'd ask myself, will this call bring anything but emptiness? If not, I hung up. A friend once told me family is sometimes a blessing, sometimes the longest test of your life. I've passed many exams in my life, but none hurt more than learning to let go of those I once thought were my anchors. At the end of August, I got a missed call from a landline I didn't recognize. A few minutes later, a message appeared, short and simple. "Lily, it's Dad. Can you call me back? There's a bit of trouble at the house." I didn't respond right away. A chill spread from my neck down my spine, like walking into a room you once called your own, only to find everything rearranged. Dad called again 2 days later. His voice was quieter than usual, hesitant. "Melissa and Zach, they haven't seemed too comfortable lately with us still living there." I stayed silent, waiting for more. "They said they need their own space to build their life. There are only 3 bedrooms and there's just too much stuff. Your mother and I don't want to be a burden." I closed my eyes, leaning into the chair. It felt like a silent blow to the back of my head. "What did they say?" I asked slowly. Dad took a long breath. "They want us to move out within the next 2 weeks. Said there was always an agreement, it would be temporary." "Whose agreement?" I asked. No one answered. I heard my mother in the background, her voice barely more than a whisper. Maybe ask Lily if the lake house is available. I shut my eyes tight, my nails digging into my palms. Dad spoke up we'd only stay for a short time, just until we find something else. It wouldn't affect you at all. I didn't reply right away. I opened the window, letting the breeze in. I thought of the retreat house in Estes Park, the one where I laid every floor tile myself, chose every curtain, mixed the paint for the master bedroom. The one I dreamed of spending slow mornings, brewing coffee, and quiet evenings, reading by the fireplace. A place I called untouchable. No, I said, my voice eerily calm. Dad thought I hadn't understood. You mean not right now, or you need a few days? I mean no, Dad. That house is mine. I worked hard to earn it. No one stays there unless I invite them. A long silence followed. Mom spoke, her voice cracking. Lily, are you really letting your parents sleep on the street over some silly principle? That silly principle is the only thing protecting me from being exploited again. Dad pushed back. You're letting money blind you to your duty. Family is supposed to be where we lean on each other, not cut each other off when things get hard. I spoke slowly. Each word, deliberate. Family is where people respect one another, not where they take what's yours and come back asking for more. No one said another word. I ended the call with one line, I hope you find somewhere suitable to stay. 3 days later, they showed up at my office without warning. Mom wore her usual beige fall coat. She looked pale, holding a paper bag of walnut cookies, my childhood favorite. Dad looked thinner. His hair had more gray than I remembered. They stood outside the reception area waiting for me to come out. I didn't invite them in. I motioned for them to follow me to the cafe downstairs. We sat at the back table out of earshot. Dad started, if you won't let us stay long term, at least give us a few months to get situated. Mom placed the bag of cookies on the table like it was collateral for a negotiation. We don't have any close relatives nearby anymore. Emma's still struggling. I looked directly at them. I'm not a backup plan. I'm the one who got cut out of every decision but paid for everything. That house isn't a fix-it kit for bad choices. Mom looked down. Dad whispered so low I had to lean in. I was wrong. But don't you have any compassion? Compassion isn't a ticket to trample my boundaries? I stood, left my half-finished coffee on the table. My voice no longer trembled. I'm not saying no out of bitterness. I'm saying no to protect myself. I turned and walked away. They didn't call after me. I didn't look back. But as I reached the door, I saw Mom clutching that paper bag tighter, like if she let go, the last shred of hope would fall with it. Late Monday afternoon, I was reviewing design drafts for a newly listed penthouse when my assistant knocked gently. She handed me a small note, speaking quickly. A Mr. Richard Mitchell is here to see you. No appointment. He said he's your father. I put the pen down. My breath slowed. My heart didn't race. No tightness in my chest. Just a distant sensation of something that used to be familiar. I gave a slight nod. Give him 5 minutes. My father walked in a faded version of the man who once sat at the head of the dinner table. His face was gaunt hair, neatly trimmed but heavily gray. In his hand was a small green box tied with a simple ribbon. Your mom made pecan cookies, he said quietly, setting the box on the meeting table like an offering. I didn't sit. Just stood, arms folded. I don't eat sweets anymore. He nodded. No anger. No reaction. Then leave it for your coworkers. Your mom didn't make them to ask for anything. I looked at him, waiting for what came next. I've started therapy. 1 session a week. I think. It's time I finally look back. Not because of your mom. Not because of Emma. But for myself. For what I didn't see, didn't say, didn't stop. I didn't interrupt. Just listened. He went on. You don't have to forgive me. But I think you deserve to hear someone say it clearly. I was wrong. Not just about the house, but everything that came long before. I nodded slightly, the sting no longer sharp like the time he made excuses at the wedding. A week later, my mom sent an email. The subject was just one word: sorry. The opening line read, Lily, if you're reading this far, it means you didn't delete the message. Thank you. She wrote about how her own mother, my grandmother, used to favor her younger brother, and how she had unknowingly repeated that cycle. She admitted she let Emma's fragility justify every poor choice she made. The letter ended with an invitation. I'm starting family counseling. If you're willing, join us for one session, just to try. If not, I understand. I forwarded the email to my therapist. After 2 private sessions, I agreed. One session. 1 hour. No further commitment. The therapy center was in a red brick building near Wash Park. The waiting room glowed with soft yellow light, gray upholstered chairs, and a faint scent of lavender. My mom arrived first, holding a cup of peppermint tea, her hand slightly shaking. The therapist, Helen, invited us in. She began by reading the boundaries I had emailed ahead. No discussion of money, no justifying the decision to give away the house, no shifting blame onto me. Dad nodded. Mom nodded slower. The first session was full of silences. At times I wanted to leave. But there were moments I looked at my mother, not with anger, but with exhaustion. When she cried, I didn't look away. We attended 3 more sessions. Nothing miraculous. Just layers of dust slowly wiped from a mirror that had long faded. Outside counseling, I didn't change my life for them. I kept my distance. But I began to live more deeply with myself. I bought a 3-story home in the Highlands, near 32 N Street. Not as big as my parents' old house, but enough for me to plant herbs, bake chocolate chip cookies on Saturday mornings, and open the door to people who truly respected me. The cabin in Estes Park is no longer a rental. I spent time updating it, added smart heaters, repainted the back porch. Whenever I needed stillness, I'd go there, sit by the window, watching snow blanket the pines. No phone, no texts. My circle of friends grew. Not cocktail party friends, but the kind I could call at 3 a.m. just to say, today I feel lost. I started dating a civil engineer named Owen, someone I met during a project converting an old elementary school into a community art space. He didn't ask about my family on the first date. When I told him, he didn't say you should forgive them. He just asked, do you want to get away from it all? I've got bread and silence. I laughed for the first time in months, really laughed. Dad kept going to therapy. We kept limited contact. 1 lunch a month. Every time he brought a notebook with things he wanted to ask, things to tell me. Like he was relearning fatherhood from page 1. Mom was slower. One day she sent me a photo of an empty picture frame with a note. This is what I'm trying to fill with new things after removing the old one. I replied with a photo of my kitchen corner, where I had just planted a pot of rosemary. My family doesn't look like the kind people expect. But I no longer feel like a shadow in my own story. And I don't need anyone's permission to be myself anymore. Lily's story is proof that maturity isn't just about success. It's about learning to set boundaries with those who once hurt you the most. Despite years of being financially exploited and emotionally dismissed, she found the strength to break the cycle and build a life rooted in her own values. In real life, some relationships are only worth continuing if they're based on mutual respect and equality, not one-sided sacrifice disguised as filial duty. What do you think about Lily's decision? Was she too harsh, or was it exactly what she needed to protect herself? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories and life lessons.